Well, Browns fans, it wasn't the prettiest of wins, but it was a win for the Cleveland Browns this fine Sunday afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida, where they walk out victorious 18-13 to improve to 1-1 on the season. I'm, of course, Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin back in Cleveland, alongside here to break down everything with you post game. We've seen the game play out. We've heard from Coach Stefanski. We've heard from players, everybody, and now we can finally assess everything that happened in this game. And Anthony, I tell you, man, first half, I know we're going to get more to that specifically, but it looked like everything was going the Browns' way on offense and defense. And then the second half, the Jaguars made sort of a fierce rally, and you thought the Browns are going to pull one of their classic scenarios where they give a game away, but defense comes through, makes some big plays late, and they're able to hang on. It's one of those situations, though, where like you'll take them any way you can get them, and you know the Browns got to be feeling pretty good. Even if it's an escape with a win, they got to feel pretty good going back to Cleveland 1-1 on the season.
Can't confirm or deny that I may have sent a text saying this is going to be such a Browns loss, because that's what it felt like. Like it was like as the game was happening, it was slipping away, and you're like, you've got to be kidding me. Especially thinking back to the first half, where truthfully they should have went into half up 20-0. After think back to the fumble on the kickoff where we get a penalty on the kicker. Yeah. Passing the 50-yard line. We're all still learning this new kickoff rule, but
weird penalty. I somebody tweeted me and they said, are they really that concerned about the kicker being across the 50 as like an advantage for the team? And I said, apparently the NFL is, because that's the rule. But you're right. It was a very weird penalty to get. And it did change that moment of the game.
It's a huge moment in the game. And I guess for the penalty's sake, because I was kind of trying to figure out, like, what's the point? Like, I guess if it is Justin Reed or whoever the guy is from the Chiefs who can kick and play safety, like, all right, if it is a guy who can make plays, like maybe that is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does factor in, and it's not a Dustin Hopkins or a Justin Tucker or whomever, right, who's just kind of out there just to be out there. But anyway, regardless, a huge swing in the game that – think back to it, Spence. We have Browns recover the fumble, have first and goal or first and 10 inside the 20. Instead, they re-kick it, and then the Jaguars go right down the field and get their first points in the game. And you're like, uh-oh, you don't love that. And then the Browns come out in the second half, go 3 and out, and then they just started climbing back in. And you're like, I've seen this movie before. I said it a ton last year. I'll say it again going forward, but we've all seen the movie before. But to the Browns' credit, they stopped the water. They shut it off, and they were able to get a victory. But they kept it a little dramatic there towards the end.
I'll say this too. Listen, I understand there were some big discrepancies in the second half. Cleveland outgained Jacksonville 195-81 in the first half, and then in the second half they were outgained 242 to 102. So it was like a big discrepancy there. But even though Jacksonville was moving the ball, man, like aside from that 66-yard bomb to Brian Thomas Jr. from Trevor Lawrence, I didn't think that I thought the defense still played like a really good game. You know, you're going to give up some plays here or there. And I mean, and you look at the scoreboard and you realize like, yeah, even though they outgained him in the second half, it was kind of one of those bend but don't break mentalities for this group. And they kept them off the scoreboard. They've talked about red zone defense being a hyper focus for them this year. Right. And they did a really good job of holding them to a lot of field goals today and keeping their team in front. So yeah, like it never really felt like, even though they had some momentum in the second half, that Jacksonville was truly a threat to take down the Browns until kind of the final few minutes where it felt like the Browns were going to give the game away. Yeah. But other than that, like, yeah, I thought Trevor Lawrence was under duress all day. He was sacked a number of times. Myles Garrett had another strip sack for him. That could have changed the game if it bounces differently. Like so there was definitely some moments where it just felt like the defense dominated the day. And the offense is still kind of feeling some things out, but they had a really good first half and then an okay second half that showed there's still some room for improvement.
You kind of hit the nail right on the head. Myles Garrett talked a lot in his post-game presser, which you can get on our YouTube channel here. But he did mention how important the red zone defense is turning 7 points into 3 points. And that's huge. And Spencer, truthfully, anytime you hold an NFL team to 13 points, you're doing your job. Like that is, you need to win every time your defense holds the opposing team to 17 or less. You need to win the football game. And thankfully the Browns offense was able to get it done. The offense was awesome to start. And I thought we saw a lot of old Deshaun. You saw a lot of Houston Deshaun. You saw a lot of him scrambling to make plays. You saw him being very accurate. And then you saw the receivers kind of pick up their part of it too. There was very little drops and we'll get to this in a little bit, but the one guy who's become kind of suspect is your guy with your best hands in Amari Cooper. And it's like, all right, if Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore can kind of hold the water for this to this point. Bring Amari along. You got something cooking on offense, and I think they're very, very close. We talked about it at the start. Can they fix all their problems today? No, but can they look better? Yes, and they certainly did.
That's well said by you. And yeah, I think Deshaun took some huge strides, especially on that opening drive. I know it's the scripted drive, and people are going to read into that. But for him to come out and with everything he was dealing with in the last couple of weeks and driving down the field, 97 yards, score a touchdown, that was big. And I think it kind of set the tone for this game and showed that the offense wasn't just, they weren't falling back on last week and feeling sorry for themselves. They came out with a good game plan, and I thought that showed. We can talk more about Cooper here in a little bit. I also just want to say too, like, one of the big things from today that this game that I feel like a theme of this game was that it really felt like everybody had a hand in it. Dustin Hopkins has to hit a number of field goals, so you get the special teams really involved today. Myles Garrett making some big plays, including the sack. The defense getting some stops. The offense made plays in certain moments where they had to. They continued to push the lead, even though it was in smaller increments than maybe what fans wanted. And then even somebody like Alex Wright makes maybe the play that saves the game by sacking Trevor Lawrence in the closing minutes in the end zone, gives them a safety, gives them a 5-point lead, where then okay, we can try to kill this clock. Even if we don't, they now have to score a touchdown to win the game, and it puts you in a position where you were feeling pretty good about things at that point. So it just felt like every step of the way, the collective of I think the defense played a good game. That's maybe the one thing that was like steady throughout. But then, throughout the game, there was like moments where different areas, different phases, different players had to step up and make plays, and they made those plays for the Browns too.
And you missed one guy. Corey Bojorquez needs a game ball today, and I'm sure he got
one.
Oh,
yeah, that punt was fantastic.
You can't get the Alex Wright safety.
He had one bad one, but that one was really good at the end of the game.
That last one made up for all of his sins the past year, I'm sure of it, because pinning the ball or hit that backspin looked like a Spencer German wedge from 100 yards, because that hit the 1 yard line and bounced out.
You give me way too much credit.
it bounced out at the 1 yard line, and you're like, this is the perfect punt in that situation. Give Trevor Lawrence the ball with 99 yards to go. Good luck, bud. And it took one play for Alex Wright to kind of squash all that and make it a moot point, because I think that was really good, and there was so much good from today. But the nice part is there's so much room to continue to improve.
Last thing towards the end of the game I want to hit on. I thought the moment they were giving the game away was when they decided to throw the ball on third down. And it was funny because Kevin Stefanski talked about it after the game, and he said, he was mad at Deshaun after that play because he tried to throw the ball instead of taking the sack. He should have just taken the sack. And that gave Jacksonville sort of one last chance and a couple heaves to the end zone there at the end. That was I thought it was a perplexing play call by Stefanski to begin with, but it was also perplexing that Deshaun, who's a veteran quarterback in this league, didn't just eat it, take the sack. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, I thought they were going to get out of here unscathed, and then they almost gave it away at the very, very end there.
I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. It's like if you call that type of a play, and I disagree with the call. I think it normally in those cases I'm like okay with it, but with the way that everything was going, just run that thing. Like Dante Foreman, and we haven't touched on him, but he had a really nice game, finished 42 yards on 14 carries, like was getting good chunks. There's no reason why he couldn't break it for 10 yards and just totally end the game. But instead, you just hand it off to him, get a yard or two. You're going to punt anyway. You're going to lose 40 seconds off the clock. I thought it was just a questionable play call, but you do that. You make that play call, trusting your quarterback to make the right decision, and he unfortunately did not. It was just kind of a frustrating one. It left everyone scratching their heads and being like, "Son of a gun!" I was changing the headline of my story to be like "Browns lose" because I felt it. I felt it coming. But like we said, they were able to not let it all unravel totally.
I want everybody who's watching this to keep their minds on the run game, because we will be talking about that a little bit more in a follow-up video here coming. Last thing on this video, though, is I just want to highlight some of the key injuries in this game. David Bell, as you guys all probably saw, left the game on the cart. He has a dislocated hip, which is part of the reason why, you noticed, they had his leg like up in the air as he was being carted off. And so you could tell there was something really uncomfortable there. And that's what that was. I don't know the severity of how long that means. So be out or not out for the season. We'll find out more from Stefanski tomorrow. Obviously, the other injury of note why am I drawing a blank on the other injury now? Who the hell was it? Oh, Pierre Strong. Pierre Strong left the game with a hamstring issue and didn't come back. And then there was a moment where DeJuan Jones left the game and he had cramping, but he was obviously back in the game throughout the second half, so that was okay. And those were kind of the ones of note. The other thing I want you guys to know, though, too, Denzel Ward, who maybe you picked up on the broadcast, maybe you didn't, he was kind of rotating in and out. He was in on like start of drives at times, and then he was in on like third downs on drives at times, but he was not consistently out there. They had Greg Newsome playing that outside cornerback spot a lot with Cameron Mitchell in the slot, and there was some confusion as to why, and Kevin Stefanski said he was on the injury report with a shoulder injury, and they were just kind of managing it. So just something to keep an eye on. On that front, Myles Garrett also mentioned that his foot was bothering him today. And I think the scary thing with that, Anthony, is just it feels like something that's going to bother him all season, which isn't what fans want to hear. But knowing Myles, he's going to try to play through it as best he can.
He's going to try. And it was funny with all of the drama from last week with the 49ers. Like Kevin was like very adamant, like he was on the injury report, Denzel, that is. And like, hey, we were like very much so. There's no question here. And this is kind of what was going on. But yeah, is it safe to say we came out unscathed? I don't know. Like, I don't want to jinx it, but for what we're used to season-ending injuries with key guys. Feels
for the most part. I mean, David Bell's that's a tough injury. And I know people know David Bell. He's a third-round draft pick from a couple years ago. But I don't think that maybe in the margins it impacts the Browns, but overall wise, I don't think it's it's not the biggest of blows, but still stinks obviously for him. And to lose a receiver is never an easy thing for the Browns. But they have some options like Kadarius Toney, who I am pretty sure was on my flight out of Cleveland, by the way. So anyway, you guys don't care about that. We have plenty more Browns coverage coming your way. Anthony and I are going to talk more specifically about the offense here coming up. And, of course, Deshaun Watson's play today, because I know you guys all want to get into that. So stick around here on the Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. We'll have plenty more coverage coming your way. And don't forget to go over to Cleveland Browns on SI, the website, where you can find all sorts of coverage from throughout the day, during the game, after the game, and there's more to come. Coverage of your Cleveland Browns.